Good evening and welcome. Well, I don't want to do that. Can't see Robert over there. Good evening and welcome to Dark Hour. It wasn't much better, was it? Let's try something. Good evening and welcome to Dark Hour Paranormal. Tonight, we are going to be talking very briefly about our day today. Robert, Thomas, and myself have made our way down here to the Bridgewater Triangle, and we have had the guidance of the Bridgewater Triangle paranormal investigators, Harry and another gentleman. So bad with names. I feel terrible. Um, they came and they helped us, kind of pick out certain locations and then traverse some of the locations because, as you can imagine, I've mentioned before how impassable the Hockomock Swamp is to many degrees. And of course, they were able to bring us to a safe entrance and bring us deep within the Hockomock. And we had quite some experiences out there, especially this guy which I'll let him talk about if he's ready to. Otherwise, you will see that within the documentary. Where's Thomas?
He's coming.
Okay.
I left the door open for him, so he's.
I like how you use your shoe as a block. One shoe on. This is great. This is all about what we do here. Just taking it easy by any means necessary, getting stuff done. Mysteria Dragonheart, how you doing, love? Great to see you here. Scotty B, what's up, buddy? Welcome back to the show. Appreciate you guys coming in. I know that this is something very impromptu, and we are, believe me, all very exhausted and ready to hit the hay. But as a due diligence, it is important that we come back and sort of recap what we've been through and talk about what we have planned for tomorrow. We're waiting for one other member to show up. His name is Thomas. He'll be here in just a moment. Walter Corbin, what's up, brother? Nice to see you. Emmy M. Texas, thank you for coming to the show. Always fantastic to see you. And of course, all you guys watching out there in the peripheral sense, I don't see you, but I know you're there. I appreciate you being here. Now, before we get this really started here and roll, Robert has, I don't even know how I can say this, bestowed many a gift on me going into this whole thing today. And I want to share with you two pieces of equipment that he's given me. And I have to tell you, I'm incredibly grateful for Robert and his support of the channel. He has made donations and he's donated certain pieces of equipment that just become paramount when you go out into the field. Long Island Bigfoot, what's up, bro? Nice to see you. Dr. Fossey, tortured and killed puppies. Nice to see you, brother. Thanks for being on the show. The first thing I want to show you here, and please give me a little leniency if I start stuttering over certain words or I mumble a little bit. I am ready. I'm on my last leg here. I'm so tired. It's been a hell of a week, guys. So the first thing I want to show you, and Robert can make mention of this too, are these really neat aura glasses. So I didn't even know that they made these, and they are called AuraView Metaphysical Research Group. I'm sorry, that's the company that seems to be provided. And this is what they look like. They are a blue tinted set of glasses that can see certain spectrums of the light that we're not seeing with our naked eye. Now, when I put these on, everything obviously gets much darker in that way of the blue hue. But the whole idea is that when you place an individual against a light-colored wall in a low light setting, this might actually help you to see the energetic outline of the aura. This isn't going to help you see well, I'll put it this way, it's not going to help you see beyond the emotional body, okay? So that small rays in energy that we all have and we walk around with, and some of us can see with our naked eye, this is, again, an apparatus that should make that an easier endeavor, and I can't wait to try it out with these guys when we get a chance. We certainly will. In the meantime, this is another bit of equipment that I'm actually very excited about. Robert has one as well. This right here, folks, which I apparently forgot to turn off, is a thermal imager. So now we can take pictures in thermal, and as you can see, I'm over there on Robert. His heat signature is very apparent, and this is really cool. There's also another device that he has given me that goes with the camera, and I will show you that later. But for the time being, look at this LCD screen, very nice, love it. Fantastic bit of equipment, and yes, as you know, I lack some of the ghost hunting equipment that I used to have going out in the field. How the hell do you turn this off? Oh, there it is. It's called patience, Michael. That's how you turn it off. Patience. All right. So Robert, today, we had the chance to step into some spaces that we've never visited before. This was something different for both of us in certain ways. Upon getting down to the Freetown State Forest where we began, what were your initial impressions? When you parked the car, you got out and started feeling your way around a little bit.
Okay. Michael, thank you for having me on the show tonight. I really appreciate it. We had a great day today. This has been planned for many moons, and we finally got a chance to get out there and do what we intended all along. And I think it surpassed our expectations, mine anyway, as far as what I intended to do for just a brief time in the area today. If you want to start there, I'll start there.
Sure.
Well, getting there, I thought, here we are. We finally made it, and the adventure's about to start. And I was leaving myself, in many ways, open to the possibilities of what was. I didn't have any preconceived idea or notions going in. I was leaving, the flow to happen as it organically will happen.
Kind of the best way to approach it.
Thanks. And not that I didn't know some of the history, the tradition, or these, shall we say, reports and accounts of encounters and recountings of people's experiences that they've had going in there. I've taken that into consideration. I'm not saying I believe anything out and out. I'm not saying I don't believe any of those stories. I'm not trying to, individually pick and choose and things. I don't have any belief about it. I just heard the stories, and they are some wild stories by any stretch of the imagination.
But one of the interesting things I've noticed about you in general, but certainly is on display here in this run through, you're a very scientific guy. You like to be calculated, you like to measure things, and you brought certain equipment with you to take that more scientific approach and even perhaps go beyond what people have had in way of experience, considering what kind of samples you were gathering today and how you maybe went about that endeavor. Maybe if you could tell us a little bit about some of the scientific equipment that you brought with you and what your intentions are.
Correct. Well, knowing the mission, shall we say, that I was on, I wanted to bring equipment that was tailor-made sort of for this excursion, sort of anything that could be considered apropos and useful. I tried to gather beforehand, knowing that we had several months leading up to this. I said, what are we going to need? This checklist, okay? And well, I kind of based what I brought with me in many ways on equipment that other researchers have, not all the equipment that you would think of, but where I looked was the guys who are investigating like Skinwalker Ranch and some of the other hot spots that they say where there's not just one type of thing, but there's several different types of phenomena in one focal point. Like you will have reports of cryptids, you will have a lot of UFO sightings, you will have different various ghostly apparitions and encounters on that level, and sensors and detectors in that range. As you see, the infrared, the FLIR, the thermal camera. I thought that was important to bring out there, and I did use that for the first time in the field today when we first got there. You had noticed that there was a campsite that was unoccupied, vacant, and we looked over and noticed that you'd been there a little bit before we arrived, and you were scouting around, I guess, or scoping around and with just your visuals, and you came to see there's nothing that out of the ordinary. Suddenly we show up, we're hanging out for a bit, and then you looked over to, again, an unoccupied area and saw plumages of smoke rising out of the barbecue pit there that they had. And you said, hey, that wasn't like that just a minute ago. There was nothing cooking that I remember. I didn't see anyone over there. We didn't see anyone, going in front of. I mean, we weren't really that aware of who was around us or anything, but we could certainly tell, in that, distance, that radius, that, I didn't see anyone. And
Well,
suddenly there it was smoking. So that's odd.
the odd thing about this is that I got there, some time before they did. I actually parked further up on the way in, as they have parking spots along the way. At one point, I decided, maybe I would, get back into the actual main parking lot. So I drove around and went up to the edge where I was facing a campsite, and there was a barbecue spigot. And you see these in many different campsites. People use them all the time. Uh, there was nothing going on there. I was just sitting there watching it, kind of daydreaming out, thinking about what we were going to be doing as soon as we got into the woods, and didn't have any attention to that. These guys came up. I'd say I was there for about 20 minutes, and when they arrived, got out of the car, did the greets, and talked about some of the equipment and what we were going to do, And one of us, I don't even know if it was me, it might have been Tom, I don't know, maybe it was you. One of us looked over and saw that there was some smoke billowing out of this barbecue pit. So, intrinsically, we're going to go over there because of curiosity. I mean, this wasn't there a moment ago. So what the hell happened? We didn't see anybody walk by. I mean, somebody would have to sit there and start the fire and get things going. It would have taken more time in way of what we were actually sitting there for. We would have seen this person. Now, in addition, the anomalous part beyond what we're mentioning here is that there was food cooking on the stove now. Right on the grill, there were like 4 or 5, I think it was 5 hot dogs, 4.5 hot dogs, and an upside down can of beans, which upon further inspection had absolutely nothing in it. But, these dogs were ready and cooked. It was like somebody put them on, and within the allotted time that they were supposed to cook with the fire underneath, they were done, but there was nobody in sight. So we took note of this, we documented it. Just, now this is rather weird. And we went out into the woods, and we'll talk briefly about that experience. And then came back maybe an hour later or so, good hour later, and sure enough, the fire had gone out, but the food was still there. Now, there was a small bag hanging from the picnic bench that seemed to have some trash in it, a plastic bag. So if this person was there, it would have literally taken nothing for them to just discard everything into the trash and then leave like they did. Where did this fire come from, number one? And number two, where in God's name did the food come from that literally, again, looked like we could have just, gone down and taken a bite and it would have been okay to eat? Very, very strange. And, it's not something that I can explain just because, as Robert mentioned, we didn't see anybody over in this area, and we were sitting right at the edge of the campsite. If somebody had walked through or started working within that area, we would have definitely, beyond a shadow of a doubt, seen them. And, that's what it would have been. But, going into the forest, Robert, what were your thoughts going into the forest? I mean, this is a place of, certain intrigue. We understand there's a lot of dark, dark history. It's known as the most haunted forest in Massachusetts, at least, if not the whole Northeast.
That's right.
What did you feel like going into these woods for the first time?
It was being out again in nature.
I'm gonna shut this door. Okay.
Yeah.
Just have it off.
My sense upon it was being out in a trail hike in nature, just looking at trees and looking at the serenely in nature. Thank you, sir.
Mm-hmm.
And really enjoying being outside, getting fresh air, walking around, being with friends, and getting some exercise. And I wasn't really too cognizant of any bad vibes in the area or any history of the place. Not that I didn't know some things that had occurred to me, but it really wasn't tantamount in my, experience of what I was there to do or even to experience. Mm-hmm. So I really never picked up on that. I never really let myself really get to a place where I even wanted to try to tune in on any.
Did you feel you walked in there sort of open? In a sense, do you feel you walked in there sort of open and vulnerable in a sense, kind of that open antenna if something
yes. Okay. Yes, I was definitely going in with the thought of, hey, anything, whatever's out here, if there is anything out here to come, I'm ready to experience it, whether it be beauty, whether it be, something out of the ordinary, whatever. That's
leave all possibilities open.
I'd love to, be involved in anything,
mm-hmm.
that the day could bring. So that was my thought and intention. And, I really didn't see anything weird or hear anything weird. I think both of these guys did. at different times. There were noises and things that caught us off guard, maybe a bird, and then they heard noises like a twig snap out there, and thought maybe it could have been some kind of weight putting down there. We didn't see anything out there, but we did. They did hear the snap. I just heard the bird, so it didn't strike me as
Alex
odd.
found upon that too. Yeah.
But to me, what was really striking is when we got back to where we had parked to that area. Suddenly, there was no people at where we had noticed they're cooking food. They hadn't come back and eaten. The food was still there. So we said, that's odd. No one came back. No one ate that what they were cooking. And so we approached it closer, and come to find out, it was cold to the touch. Like just a few minutes back, Michael thought it was odd. I really even didn't think it was that odd at that time. But yet we had just been talking about some of the equipment, and I did have my thermal cam imager on me. So I pulled that out the first time before we went on the trail for the hike, and I took a picture, and it was registering some heat. I mean, there was definitely a big heat signature, like we just saw when he was, shining it my way, but of what you would see with a heat source emanating fire. And I decided to actually take a picture. So I'm going to go back and look at the picture I took, and it'll have, I believe, recorded also the temperature of what that was. But I don't think we were gone 45 minutes, or maybe around that, when we got back cold to the touch, as if no fire had been there in hours. So maybe there was some kind of a time displacement phenomenon or slip where we were gone longer than it seemed like.
It could be. I mean, again, we've mentioned this before. I even said something about this in the cemetery documentary I released 2 nights ago, or was it 3? I can't remember now. But at any rate, when you walk into these areas, sometimes time is a very malleable thing that not necessarily gives you any sort of control in way of what you're familiar with. Time can slow, it can quicken, it can stop altogether. When I was at the Rutland State Prison Camp and I was dealing with that entity that I had apparently called to myself, I had a lighter in my hand, and I guess I was intent on maybe going out and smoking a cigarette at the time, or whatever the case may be, but I completely forgot that I had this lighter in my hand. And as I was going through the correspondence between myself and this incredibly ferocious entity, I lost all sense of time. It didn't exist for me. It was almost like being in a dream. And at the same time, at one point, I started feeling this throbbing in my hand and in my arm. What the hell? And I looked down, and I had been clenching my lighter with as much force as I possibly could. My knuckles were stark white, and it had left this huge imprint in the middle of my hand, where you would think, well, if somebody was doing that, you would feel it immediately. I didn't. I was in a completely different space. So bringing it back to the woods that we entered today, I think there was, at least for me, an element of this time slowing and sort of becoming something less important in way of where we were physically. Robert brings up, sort of the apex of the walk. We ventured some ways in there, but it is very windy, and a lot of the trails, although they're clearly marked, we're not familiar with the area, and we didn't have our guides with us at that time, so we're sort of just winging it. And of course, with going into a forest like this, you could spend hours and hours in this place just enjoying its natural beauty. And of course, if you're looking for something more like we were, lots of curiosity, of course, to again follow if you continue going deeper into the woods and spend that time. So we were out there, and we had stopped, and at this point, I haven't really felt too much. There was one pocket that I walked through that Thomas had also mentioned that he felt something weird as we walked through. Again, kind of subtle, but certainly discernible. And when we again stopped where we were, I was feeling this really heavy oppression. My whole chest was tight. Everything was real tight. I was starting to get those little butterflies right underneath the solar plexus, indicating some sort of anxiety that wasn't mine, right? This seems to be something vibrational. We start hearing this bird, and of course you hear plenty of birds in the woods, but this call was very odd. I'm sure it's some sort of native bird that I'm not familiar with, but within the trill, okay, you would think that it would go for 2-3 seconds or 4 seconds, 5 seconds maybe. I think this thing went for about 12 to 15 seconds, and we all kind of took note, and that's interesting. It just stayed on the same note, same tonality, same intensity, and at the second it stopped, there was this huge crack, probably about maybe 40 40 or 50 feet away from us, out into the woods where this shrill bird sound came from. And I kid you not, I mean, I had the camera up ready to go. I wasn't rolling at that moment, so I didn't catch the snap, but it really prompted us both to look over and go, what the fuck was that? I was expecting to hear what sounded like a second step, sounded like something big and heavy stepped down onto the ground. And I was looking for deer. I was looking for any sort of large animal that could have been in the woods. But where we heard the sound, there was absolutely nothing to see. And I started feeling, in my chest again that, I'd hear the second step. And then, soon enough, we have a different circumstance in our hands, but it never came. We talked about it. I did document that while we were out in the woods, just getting that reaction. I mean, I wish I had gotten that on tape, but the problem is, when you're out doing this type of work, it's not like a movie set where things are scripted and you're ready for the shot. You've already thought about everything you're doing prior to, what to expect in way of movement and choreography. There's none of that when you film a documentary. It's literally on the spot. And I don't have the equipment to continuously roll and then bring, hours and hours of footage back to the studio to do this. I mean, maybe I do need a full-time cameraman follow me around. I was kind of joking about that earlier, but honestly, the way some of the dynamics went with how Robert was filming today, there were many points where I was getting inspired thoughts, I'll call them, while on a location, and I would just start blurting it out. Now, he was capturing it, and Harry from Bridgewater Paranormal Investigations was also capturing it. He's filming a documentary at the same time. We'll be in that as well. That was very important because otherwise I would have missed a lot of this, not catching the cue or being in the moment within the discussion or the thought that, I can't pull up the camera and start, setting angles and, oh shit, I didn't get that right, whatever the case may be.
Even before we went on the trail for our small hike, before we met up with them, the other fellows, Harry, and what's the other gentleman's name? I can't
remember his name. I feel bad.
Anyway,
such with an S, I think.
Yes. So, I agree.
Sorry, dude.
Yeah, we when we set up, like right after we went to that food that was smoking and took our thermal images of it, we headed towards the trail, the inviting trail, the nature hike. In the parking lot, right after the cars, as I'm walking, I looked down and I said, "What is that?" And there was some kind of little figurine that was just very out of place. It seemed odd. It was only about maybe 1.5 inches in length. It was a white robed, looked like almost a child wearing an alb. And he was holding what looked like a round globe with a cross, a white cross coming up. Everything in white except the boys. It seemed like a baby's face with hair, and I immediately identified that as a Catholic symbol, a Catholic iconography icon of a baby Jesus holding the globe in his hand with a cross, a Catholic cross coming up out of it. So I identified this. God, that's odd that it's like that. And the cross was pointing directly towards the trail we were headed to. And we all looked at it and said, what's this all about? Who has these? Or I've never seen anything like this. It was so tiny.
Where'd it come from?
And where'd it come from? And it seemed like it'd been there forever, but almost like an arrow pointing in that direction. And I said to myself, well, because I'm Christian, I have a faith that involves Jesus, and of course the crucifixion is part of that and what that represents. But I said to myself, I don't want to be coming when we come back. I don't want to have that reverse upside down sort of vibe. So I spun it around so that when we came back, it would be pointing our way direction back.
Sometimes it's good to do that, and if it makes you feel better, sometimes that's what you have to do. I'll relay a very silly story very quickly. Being very sensitive myself to energy, I was always aware of my body first, right? So I go to the chiropractor when I was a teenager. I did some stupid stuff like trying to have my friend crack my back, ended up slipping vertebrae. It was a whole process that lasted years of healing. So that's the long story short. But when he was in there, he would adjust something, let's say on the left side here, and maybe move one of the atlas or, again, one of the discs in my neck. And although it didn't actually push anything out on the other side when he would make this adjustment, sometimes it would, but in most cases it wouldn't. I'd still get the sensation that this is what it was, or he'd work on one side of the body, and I say, listen, I need you to do the other side too, because something was just out of balance, didn't make me feel comfortable in way of that energy. And he used to kind of chide me a little bit the way he would, knowing that I was a sensitive in that sense. It was just kind of a funny thing to even at that age explore. But back to our investigations and what we've been doing today, and I use the word investigation lightly, although I think there's certainly an aspect of that. We're just not traditional. Well, I haven't been traditional. I think Robert is probably a little more traditional with the equipment that he brings along with him. But once we met up with the Bridgewater Triangle investigators, we're not going to give away everything, okay? Because I want to save some of it for the documentary in way of that presentation. Actually, thinking about this further, hold on to your experience in the Hockomock Swamp, because
I'm not going to mention everything. No, I'm not going to talk
when
about it
when you guys see this, I mean, the visuals are literally everything in way of what we have to present in this experience that Robert had. I'll tell you one thing: I've never seen anything like it. So put that one on your table and watch it closely, because when we're done here and I put this together, you guys are going to really enjoy what we have. All right, so we went to this small stone bridge. It was called Skim Milk Bridge, and this is actually on the Taunton River, which I learned today. The water from the Taunton River is filed through the Hockomock Swamp. So this was actually Hockomock Swamp water that was running under this bridge. Very, very old, antiquated bridge. Very large slabs that, we were saying, if we were to erect these things, put them into the ground to a degree, it could look like a dolmen. That's how big these things were. Gigantic, massive field stones weighing tons.
Monoliths.
Literally. And nobody really knows how they built this bridge. They don't know who built the bridge. I took a quick stab at it. I'd say it looks like it's a mid 1700 effort. But again, even as I had mentioned before, pulling these oxen and cart would still have been quite the feat and probably a modern marvel at the time. But long story short, there was a woman who went missing on that river back in 1916. And they did find the canoe. It had actually washed up against the bridge, but they never found her body. They found footprints leading deeper into the swamp. And this started to get more marshy and muddy as it was going in, to the point where they weren't even comfortable going in and trying to continue the rescue effort, because it was just going to be a tragic thing for all if they all got stuck out there. I mean, that's the kind of terrain that we're looking at. You're talking a matter of 100 feet and it's untraversable. You simply can't get in there. So yeah, that was an interesting place. It was very peaceful for me. What did you get from the spot, Robert?
Well, I've never been there before. I'd heard about it and I'd researched it, so I knew a little bit about the past history of the place, and I was excited to go. I was really enjoying the walk after we parked close to the entranceway to the path.
That was pretty.
Out there. It was very, very beautiful.
The marsh bordering on both sides, by the way, with a very small, thin trail to follow.
And so we had, there was the three of us plus the other two gentlemen investigating, and it was a procession going down, one guy in front of the other, and of course the more experienced fellows leading us to where they knew that was something that we could all join together. Come on over. Over here, Tom. And this is my friend Tom, who I've known for a long, long time, who came with us today.
Come on over just a little bit. Get close to Robert, eh? Let's be friends in here, right?
Right.
Jam around him. There we go. Got the crew in here. This is Thomas. Thomas has come along to this investigation with us. This is not his first time. He was also present with us up in America's Stonehenge when we were filming that documentary, about a year and a half ago now, I think. Okay, so I'm sorry, you were saying something.
Well, by the way, I was just kind of embellishing on the details as we were leading up to that bridge.
Okay. Yep.
On the trail going up there. One in front of the other, kind of a procession of guys just looking around. Guys like him and I who had never been there. I guess I'd never physically been there, but you knew the story. And as did I. And it was good to be able to be there. Someplace where I'd heard about and always, wanted to go to, finally got a chance to go to see for myself.
Well, there's this sense of when you research a spot for so long and you learn and you understand the history behind it and you go as deep as you possibly can, it does become part of you in way of your roster and knowledge and so forth, but you don't have the experience of being there. When you finally find yourself there physically, it's like learning about a fairy tale and being able to recite it frontwards and backwards, and then going to the place where everything is depicted within that fairy tale. And I put it that way because, again, a lot of these stories seem to be pretty high up in elevation, but yet we're doing our best to grab certain aspects and ground them to find the validity behind them. Now, a lot of what we're talking about tonight can actually be corroborated by official records. So this woman's name was Evelyn Packard. And you can still find the news clippings online of when she disappeared and the rescue efforts that they put forward. But she is not by any means the only one to go missing in the Hockomock Swamp. I mean, there are countless others. In fact, it's discouraged that you even go in there at all for that reason.
I had to take my hat off when it was brought up. I had to pay my respects to the dearly departed in that way.
And it's not like the spot itself was heavy. It was a very beautiful, tranquil, serene area. Certainly, the wildlife that's there has overtaken this place and seems to be very happy. And yet, there's always these little pockets of energy here and there. You walk through, and you're like, "Man, that felt weird." Something changes, but it doesn't sustain. It doesn't stay. So we went out to this location. This was fun. And of course, really just the beginning of what we were going to get into, knowing that the Bridgewater Triangle Paranormal Investigators would be helping us immensely along this way. So the next spot we went was King Phillips Cave. And to be honest with you, this was a lot closer to civilization than I thought it could be. Seriously, if you were sitting at the end of this cave here and you threw a rock, you might hit a house. That's just how close civilization is. The cave itself is very, very unique. I've visited a lot of these different caves, including several Leatherman caves throughout Connecticut. It's enormous inside, and Robert had noticed that there was this triangular formation to the opening, and this is significant in the way of triangles. We've been talking about this a little bit in the way of sacred geometry. I think we've drawn a consensus between ourselves that the Bridgewater Triangle, the way that Lauren Coleman defined it back in 1983, certainly goes much further beyond the boundaries of what he defined. And somebody that we will be bringing into the mix for this documentary had actually mentioned that they believe this could actually be more of a circle with a certain radius. Again, that it stretches far beyond. The Bridgewater investigators also had expressed this same thought. So, I mean, really what we're looking at here, it's not just the Bridgewater Triangle that has all these hauntings, it's all of Massachusetts in most cases. So, I mean, that's something we'll expound upon, I think, as the future comes, and something that we'll need to take a good focus with, especially in redefining what the Bridgewater Triangle actually is. Maybe at the end of the day, we'll have some clarity with that. Thomas, when we went to the caves there, what was your first thought on stepping onto the property? Were you kind of overtaken by the enormity of it? Did you start thinking about the history of it? Did you have an itch on your face and just got your attention that way? What were you thinking when you walked on?
Well, I read a little about it, so I kind of knew about it.
Did you feel anything from that site in way of energy, or just the plasticity of it?
Yeah. On the way up, though, we were discussing the day, how the day looked to ourselves.
Oh, right.
Before we got there, just prior to getting there, and we were talking back and forth in the car. I drove up, and we were looking at the clouds, and it wasn't a bright sunny day out. There were clouds, and the clouds that were there were partially darkened, and it felt like it wasn't a bright day and it wasn't a dark day. It was some twilight area that we were in the whole day. It was like that. You look up in the sky and it's bright, yet it's dark too. So we had that conversation.
It's a good way to describe it too. That's exactly what it felt like. Twilight, perpetual twilight all day. Oh my God, Alex Oyen under the veil. What's up, brother? Thank you so much for the $10 super chat, mate. He said, great to catch you live, Michael, Dark Hour fam. Hey, we appreciate you being here. We put a whole lot of effort into these adventures, if you want to call them that. And, there's a lot that goes behind the scenes to make this sort of thing happen. And we just appreciate how much you appreciate the content we put out here on the channel. And of course, all the wonderful people that participate, even on the boots on the ground. I mean, this was redefined today for me. So, I mean, keep your eye out for the documentary. You'll see what I'm saying. Robert over here has again redefined boots on the ground, and I'll leave it at that. You know, this is one. Thank you, Alex, very much. I really appreciate it. Guys, go and check out Alex's channel if you want to see things in the way of elementals. You want to talk about cryptozoology. This is the guy to go to. He's constantly out in the field, boots on the ground, doing the same type of research. And I implore you to go and check out his channel on YouTube. You know, from King Phillips Cave, which, you know, I really had a great time sitting in and just feeling the antiquity of that place, and knowing that the soil has been trodden down for years and that there was probably a different topography at the time. But, you know, he picked a great place to hide during the King Phillips War. This is where Metacomet was hiding for quite some time before he was accosted.
That was all woods.
What's that?
Said back then it was all woods and no houses.
All woods, lots of hills, lots of stone.
You see the other stone like structures in front of the yards.
Yes, absolutely. You can. You were pointing that out actually as we were leaving. I think I was talking about something else at the time, but I noticed that there are little structures all over the place, and I think they do have something to do with the larger constructions that are in the woods. This is a natural formation, by the way. These glacial boulders are just literally propped up on top of each other in such a way that it creates this tent space. But it's plenty enough for people to get inside. And if you needed to hide for a period of time and you knew your way around the wild, this would certainly be the quintessential hiding spot. So from there, let's see.
Before we,
Yeah, go ahead.
I want to just mention back at King Phillips Cave.
Mhm.
Before the Bridgewater Triangle Paranormal Investigators group showed up, the two fellows, we were waiting for them. They kind of went to get gas, and we're, you know, there first. And we had a few minutes to discuss, you know, before we actually took off to investigate, just the personage of King Philip himself. And I want to stop for a minute and pause at just the name Metacomet, for example. He right now could be, you know, called King Philip by, you know, the colonists, by the, you know, indigenous, you know, the white man, not the indigenous. His name was Metacom. And I just thought, hey, isn't Meta now on everyone's lips with Facebook changing their name to Meta? Everyone understands what the metaverse is today, or well, they think they do. Just the name, they've heard it. So it's on everyone's lips, Meta. We know Meta. Everything's Meta. It's a meta joke. You're getting it in Meta. So Metacom. Metacom sounds almost like an MIT, you know, industrial technological you know, type of, you know, institute or something like that. Metacom. Hey, join the Metacom company, and you know, you can be all set for the, you know, duration of your career. And then Metacomet. Comet. Also, we know what a comet is. I mean, these are not English words. This is not, you know, this is an Algonquin name. So a Wampanoag, which is an Algonquin, you know, tribe.
In essence, yeah.
So it's just, it almost sounds like our English word. Comet, we know what a comet is. Com, that's short for computer. Meta, everything's meta now. Metacom. So I wanted to just bring that up.
We probably, you know, stole those words from the cultures, as we've done with many other words, to create this wonderful English language that is one of the hardest languages to learn outside of, I think it's Chinese, Japanese, and there's a couple others that sort of, the Asian dialects that they kind of straddle that. But yes, very good point. Very good point. And I think that's something interesting in looking forward into some of the names and the language. That's why it's important to learn a second language. You know, a lot of people say, well, why do I have to learn other than what I know? Well, listen, it opens up the world for you. And the more languages you learn, it just opens it up that much further. There was a point in time where I could speak 7 languages rather fluently. I'm a little rusty on that now. Put in the right situation, I can still pick it up. But it's, you know, it's something you got to keep on. You say, if you don't use it, you lose it, right? So going from this location, you know, very hell-bent on trying to recover as much as we could. And thankfully, we actually were not hindered by the nightfall. There were many places that we could still visit if we had so chosen to in the dark, which is a rarity. Believe me, I mean, a lot of times I'm out there during the day because that's when it's accessible. I mean, I might go in the dark just, you know, for the hell of it. More often than not, I've even mentioned this, you'll still find the same activity during the day as you will at night. but you get a different kind of show at night. So
at nightfall, I mean, with Bridgewater Triangle guys, I was looking at some of their videos on their channel on YouTube. And, I'm a big fan of them because they have what I believe have caught, ghostly phenomena with their equipment. And I was on before the cave, but yeah, back at the bridge where we're headed out to the bridge. This was one time that they had filmed after nightfall in the dark with their cameras and their lights. And Harry had his going, he was taping, and there was a gentleman in front of him walking, and right between the two, in front of the camera, but to the guy's back, a mist, sort of a congealed vapor floated by, and it seemed ghostly. It didn't seem like it was somebody's breath. It didn't seem like somebody took a puff of a cigarette. That would have dissipated. This seemed to keep.
He was mentioning that too.
Keep consistency, and he was mentioning that. And I was asking him, where exactly did that happen? Because I was, I'm trying to, I'm keeping my eyes and ears open for whatever we can see out there. And, I think he truly captured some kind of an apparition.
And if you want to know exactly firsthand what Robert is referencing, go over to the Bridgewater Triangle Paranormal Investigators on YouTube and check out some of their videos. Certainly guerrilla style filming. But they do a great job, and there's certainly nothing wrong with that. That's what this documentary is going to end up being. Again, given some of the challenges I've had working with this, and the cameras that I'm using don't always function the way that they're supposed to, especially as the night sets in. There's not enough light to open up that lens. I start having issues, but you're going to get certainly the point in certain scenes that I include, even if they are a little rough around the edges. I think this is okay for the type of documentary that we're working on here this time around. Moving into, before we get to our final destination, I think did we go somewhere right after King Phillips, or was that it, our final destination?
Yeah.
It was our final
King
destination,
Phillips.
right?
Well, no, we went to King Phillips, and then we went to the Hockomock Swamp.
That was our final destination.
Yeah.
Right. Okay.
So after nightfall in the dark.
And night started to fall as we were driving out to this place. One of the beautiful things about this area is that all of these locations that have, some sort of purported activity or a very steep, rich history are within 15, 20 minutes of each other. So we can basically zigzag, bob around, and catch most of these, again, within that radius. And that's lovely, because I'm used to going 45 minutes, an hour and a half out of my way just to cover a graveyard that had an apparition floating around at one point. Yeah, I got to do it. I mean, that's part of the job. As insignificant as it may seem in the face of what we're doing here, it all ties in together. It's all of the same ilk, of the same phenomena, and that's what we're after, to see if we can kind of correlate some of these experiences that people have had in way of consistencies. So yes, we made it out to the Hockomock Swamp, probably the last place I was thinking that we'd ever go in the dark. But Harry from the Bridgewater Triangle Investigators did have a nice light on his camera, and this provided us with at least enough to get through into the deeper parts of the swamp. So my initial take, and then I'll hand it over to these guys and get their impressions. The whole area is very tight and constricting, very similar to the path that we followed out to the Skim Milk Bridge. Which I mentioned it had bordering swamp on both sides. It kind of rose up. It felt like we were walking on a tombola with trees, to be honest with you. Yes, exactly. So, I mean, I thought that was interesting, and no different in the Hockomock Swamp itself. The forest is so dense, you can barely see 10 feet in. I mean, I don't even think you can see 10 feet. I'd say maybe 6 or 7 at best you can see into there. But all this small growth has sprung up and just, taken over underneath these trees. And again, it's just super thick. This whole area, it's now 1,100 miles wide, I believe, or at least within the diameter of the place. That's how many acres this actually. Jesus, was it miles, or it was miles, wasn't it? No, it was acres. That'd be acres, probably acres. I'm tired. I'll find out the answer.
I'm not sure, Michael.
Yeah, I can't remember at the moment. I cited it on film. We got that take. But at any rate, my initial impressions walking in there was that it was very, very cold. this isn't unlikely walking into a marshland, right? You have the cooler air picking up the water that's soaring over. You have dense tree cover. That's, of course, lending to less light coming in, even at nighttime, doesn't matter. This is still making things cooler in way of the air density and the humidity. But the weird thing about it is it was, what did he say? It was 68 degrees when he read the first time, because we walked in, it was like 75 degrees. No, I'm sorry, 65 degrees, and it dropped down to 58.
I was kind of lagging behind. I didn't hear the whole
I
conversation.
was talking to him very briefly because he had pulled it out, the thermometer. But yeah, within a matter of steps, it dropped that many degrees. My hands were freezing, like they were ice. And 58 degrees, come on, isn't that cold? I mean, that's almost just wearing a sweater outside. So, I mean, I made comment about it, and Harry had said, yeah, I mean, my hands are freezing too. It's kind of weird. So, I mean, again, just walking into this different space, it has a different type of vibration. You could feel how sacred it was. And the energy in there was of that area. Like when we walked out, you stepped out of something. And that was my feeling. Even with the state forest, as we left, I felt much lighter. And, this was an experience that I've had in some of these places where there's denser energy. But I think we only just touched the tip of the iceberg when it came to the Hockomock Swamp, although we were all very intrepid to go in there at night. And of course, you will hear about those experiences in the documentary. Betty Double Kick Chick sends a $5 super sticker. Thank you so much for your continued support here at Dark Hour Paranormal. I really appreciate that. Every little bit helps, guys. Again, there's a whole bunch of things behind the scene that we have to get in way of, just bringing ourselves out to the location. And I appreciate all of your support in way of what you do, even just being here, watching the show.
Fellas, I gotta say, I'm really drained after our adventure today. And it's not just because I got some exercise, I did some hiking through some trails. No, we, the three of us, really the five of us, experienced, I think, something tonight.
Well, you're sort of the spirit of that.
Well, I mean, we had limited time. It's just 2 days that we're going to be out here filming this documentary in the stretch of it. And I want to cram in as much as possible. I am here, I feel, for a reason. And that is to bring what I can to the table. I'm not going to sit here and try to, BS everyone and say my expertise and bring, what I know about it. No, just as going in with, as an open, antenna for whatever may it come what may type of an attitude, really. And a lot came with that.
And you have your experience, which I will actually get your not confession.
Well, but people are gonna love seeing it when it comes out in the documentary. It's gonna be a highlight, I think. And I know, I don't think it's bragging to say that.
No, it was
a highlight.
It was an interesting experience for everybody involved. And you said some things after the fact that really put some detail behind what you had experienced that we couldn't see viscerally. That at that point we'll get into that, and we'll film that for the documentary as well, because it's something that really supports the experience that we had. I hate to be so secretive about it, but all I can say is that I am very excited to present to you what we've come through with so far, and we still have a whole other day here. And if need be, I don't think it's going to come to that. I'll come back down, on Wednesday or Thursday, but chances are I think we're going to get what we need while we're here. And so far, that's really the feeling. I feel pretty resolved right now with what we were doing today, very productive. And again, I can't thank the Bridgewater Triangle paranormal investigators enough for them being out here. I mean, guarantee we wouldn't have been able to find some of these spots because a lot of them don't have addresses. You can't look it up on Google Earth or Google Maps rather, and just simply find this place. You either have to find something that's close by and then take a guess because you'll be walking, or there's an entrance that's off a side street somewhere, but you have to kind of know where that is. And if you drive by it, you're going to miss it quick enough. Mysteria Dragonheart, thank you for your $3 super sticker donation. Another continuing supporter here of Dark Hour Paranormal. Appreciate the hell out of you, love. Thank you so much. And you do a fantastic job with the moderation, as all of you guys out there with Blue Wrenches do, and I appreciate the hell out of you too. Absolutely fantastic. Thank you so much. Any final thoughts from from what we did today that you'd like to impart before we go and get some rest ourselves?
We got a lot more to come. I mean, this is just the, the tip of the iceberg, just coming to you just to present almost in an infomercial kind of way. It's a commercial for what's to come. If you are there, all our friends, I'm saying hi to everybody watching us tonight. Just wait till what Michael has in store for you after it's all is said and done. Whatever happens tomorrow, that's coming. This man, he's got a job ahead of him. His work is cut out for him, and I'm sure he's going to do a fantastic job. Aligning all those segments that we captured here and there into one cohesive film for you to enjoy, and you will enjoy it because, if I was watching it and I wasn't involved in it, I'd say, wow, this is awesome. I'd enjoy it. Just what the dailies they show, the raw footage that we got to look at over dinner tonight. I'm impressed by your, just your eye for
Thank you, mate.
what shots to do and what to take. So I can't wait to watch it. And you're gonna love it when you see it coming up soon too. That's all I can tell you. Really, anything more about that, I can't say, but that's a final thought for me.
How about you, Thomas?
Well, Thomas is a man, he's not going to really try to hit you over the head with anything. It's just more of the fact that it's a team, it's all of us together, and you feel that. You'll feel that, when you watch this. And Thomas here, he's a man. I've had experiences, that are out of the ordinary. Thomas also has been all his life and all my life. We've had encounters with things that most people haven't, and most people don't say they have or claim. Mysterious things all your life, like the one. You want to discuss one of them? At least give us one or two, because you've had many. But tell us the one when you were with your dad, when you were a young boy. Wasn't there something in the area?
Yeah, we had seen an object above the telephone pole, like just zigzagging.
Where were you exactly?
Tewksbury.
In Tewksbury.
Yeah.
Okay, this is significant too because Tewksbury is also known for UFO activity. I covered not necessarily the ufology end of it when I went out there to the graveyards and the Tewksbury State Hospital, but that is certainly an aspect of that area. And I think what was it in Taunton? The very first UFO was sighted out here.
I probably have to get maybe 10.
10 years old?
Somewhere around there, maybe younger.
But you saw it with your father, so there was another witness.
Yeah, me and my mother.
Now, how long did you witness this for, do you think? If you had to take a guess.
20 minutes, a half an hour, and then we went inside, and it was still like zipping around out there, just like.
So when you say zipping, does this mean
like moving,
like oscillating?
Yes.
Okay. So it was on like a horizontal plane, just kind of moving back and forth.
Yeah.
Very curious. Very curious. This is also something that people have proposed.
My father worked at MIT. We don't have nothing
Yeah, I mean, if this was some years ago, I would certainly agree with you. I mean, nothing that we were familiar with anyway.
Yeah.
But people have proposed that sometimes when some of these things are trying to cloak, and I'm going to
sitting still, they'll do that.
What's that?
When they sit still, they say they do that.
Yes, people have seen this sort of oscillation. We don't necessarily know exactly what it is yet. We talk about certain meta propulsions that may exist, and how they're
But it was moving from what I remember too, like not like real far, but back and forth.
How high about do you think this was? If you give me an idea.
Maybe 5-10 feet above the telephone pole.
So this is really close.
Yes.
So how large do you think this object was?
Didn't look very big.
The size of a tennis ball, basketball, maybe a car?
Maybe something
Interesting.
like that.
So to me, sometimes I wonder if that's the sort of drone technology. Maybe it's not us.
No, I don't know.
Well, I mean, it's nothing we would know about. Yeah.
But it's not the only UFO that Tom has encountered on that property. There was at least 2 that I was witnessed to with Tom on that property on his father's land, and
how long ago?
Within the last decade.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so
Relatively
fairly
recently.
recently.
Yeah.
In the 2000s and early, mid 2000s.
probably like 2010, I want to say, right around there.
Uh-huh,
Okay.
okay. It was definitely after I got back from Peru and Bolivia in 2006, maybe a couple of years after that, 2007, 8, around there. I'm not sure, but there were two. We've talked about it. I've talked about it on several shows. Third Phase of Moon was the first time I came forward, that close encounter with Blake and Brent Cousins. And the second time was with Rich Giordano on the Goof On show. I brought that forward. And this is my co-eyewitness that I was describing on those
I've
sites.
been to a cemetery out in Tewksbury. It's supposedly one of the oldest ones around,
Mm-hmm.
and it's like off Chandler Street, I want to say.
What's the cemetery look like? Is it just, you know, like colonial graves, or?
The graves are flat. The stones are flat on the ground. They're real old. I
You mean
remember
headstones
going-
that were thin that you got knocked over?
No,
Or just
they're
ones that are intentionally
Yes.
laid?
I don't
on
think-
the flat ones, yeah.
old.
Trying to think if I visited this place. Yeah, go ahead.
When you go in the main gate, there's 2 posts, and then it goes into the right.
I don't think I visited this
All to
area.
the left is swamp, I believe.
Now, was this an area that you had an experience in?
No, but I know people who have.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
What did they sort of report in way of that experience?
Just seeing ghosts and shit, but they were on drugs.
No, good.
Well,
Hallucinogenic drugs.
Well, when we saw our UFOs on the property, we weren't like tripping on LSD,
No,
were we?
not anything, no.
I don't even recall. I don't even think we smoked that day. Not that we don't or haven't, had indulged in marijuana
No,
at
I
that
was
time.
just fucking wood, I think.
That's right. And the way I remembered it is that we were doing masonry blocks
No,
on the
that
as
was
well,
up
but that was
front.
another
No,
time.
that's up front.
That was up front, but this was
In the back.
in the back, yeah. And these guys, and the reason why I didn't remember is because I was probably slacking off, and just these guys were doing all the work, and I'm probably sitting there smoking a
Yeah,
cigarette,
that's how
standing,
you
doing
know. That's how you know
supervising,
fucking,
keeping my hands on
Hey,
cows.
check this out.
Yeah,
There's
yeah.
a plane, a ball of light behind it.
Oh, wow. Like following it.
Yeah, it almost seems like it was pushing the plane down, because the plane was above the treetops. I can
Mhm.
count all the windows in it.
I wonder if
They don't fly that low normally.
No, not at all. Even in landing sequences, you're not going to find them like that.
The tree line was over here. There was a field, and it was going along the tree line like this, and then all of a sudden another one comes this way, almost the same height, and went in that direction.
And I forgot about that until he reminded me.
But they all have cameras on the front of the plane.
Yes.
So maybe they were ordered to go that way to take its picture.
I'm curious too if any of the passengers, if there were passengers other than the pilot and co-pilot that were witnessing this. I mean,
They
people
wouldn't be able to see it.
because it was
Because
too
it
far behind.
Yeah, and it was like above, like above and
Interesting.
behind. Like say this is the plane, it was like that.
Now,
It was following it.
what would cause a UFO, in your opinion, to act upon an airplane? What do you think their intention could possibly be? If you were to just take a guess.
I have no idea. Maybe just checking it out.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, maybe this is Lou Elizondo's
Oh.
big old threat
It
from the
seemed
UFO.
like a cat and dog situation. It seemed like a scenario where
It taking control over it. maybe,
it seemed like a Pac-Man and Ghost chase, where Pac-Man is chomping away,
We've
trying
heard
to get to
reports of
that, up
those
to that ghost.
before. Yeah.
So it was, to me,
Really?
I think it was.
Yeah,
it was-
oh yeah, absolutely. And pilots talk about it all the time.
Yeah.
Ooh, good lord. Yeah, pilots talk about it all the time. And they may be flying in squadrons. So you have 3 or 4 different planes up there in the sky, and all of a sudden one guy looks over to the right, and sure enough, there's an orb following his buddy's plane. Like, hey, wait, you know what I mean? So it's certainly something I've heard of before.
Yeah,
So it's interesting you both experienced this at the same
Too
time.
bad my cousin wasn't alive anymore, because I would have asked him, please.
but there was a third guy out there with
One
us,
who was flying the plane and hit the first tower, the second tower.
John
Oh,
Oganowski
wow.
from
Yeah.
9/11.
Oh wow.
My father's cousin.
Oh man.
Stressful.
I'm sorry to hear that, mate. It's never an easy thing.
You know,
Um, you know, that is, certainly something in way that we could talk about. There's plenty of talk beyond the conspiracy that goes into that, but we'll save that for another show and probably demonetize it prior to, so that we can speak candidly about that event. But at any rate, again, we have a big day tomorrow. We've got lots of things planned. I'm not going to divulge too much. You guys will see this as the production comes out, and I just want to thank all of you so very much for being a part of this channel and helping us grow the way you have. And we continue to do as much as we can, put as much energy as we have in a passion sense into these projects that we put out for you. Once again, thank you so much, guys. And I'd like to thank my good friend Robert Rivas here, sporting the Cosmic Cowboy from the Third Phase of Moon Band t-shirt. If you guys are interested in catching one of these, go head over to Third Phase of Moon merch, and you will certainly find this in all different styles and sizes. And Thomas, I'd like to thank as well for coming along, not only on this expedition, but aiding us out in America's Stonehenge as well, and for his expertise and experience within the field. This is one of the reasons he is with us. Certainly not an arbitrary invitation. I only travel with three if I can. Obviously working with Third Phase of Moon or something like that, we have a different outfit and a much larger panel, but they are the spearhead of that particular project and endeavor. And in most cases, yes, I'm lending plenty of insight and creativity into the process, but they are really leading what's going to happen next and where we're headed. And that's sort of the position I've taken in this sort of endeavor, because these guys are here because of what I wanted to do, and they express interest in the same effect. So I've known them both for quite some time, and was very comfortable with having them join me on this expedition. I mean, I would have done this alone, absolutely. Would have been a little more daunting to do so, but I'm happy to have these guys with me. They are just as passionate about the field as we all are. So, guys, we're gonna head out here. I wish you all a fantastic evening, and I will probably not see you tomorrow night. I think I'm gonna have to take a good solid day, maybe two, to edit this. I'm pretty quick and proficient these days, so I'm looking at maybe one. But that being the case, the documentary will be released in the latter part of this week. I think maybe Thursday is what we're going to shoot for, if not sooner. But certainly keep your eye out for that. And once again, thank you all for joining us here on Dark Hour Paranormal.
Have a great night, everyone. Thanks for watching.
Ciao.